Chosen one, hear this clearly. That stirring inside you is not a mistake. That quiet restlessness in your spirit, that unexplainable pull deep within your chest, the way your heart seems to know something long before your mind catches up, none of it is random. You have been feeding a divine agitation, a disruption at the level of your soul, a vibration that keeps echoing even when you try to silence it. And today, heaven calls you to pay attention. This message is not coming to you by coincidence. It finds you because your spirit has been searching for understanding. You have been aware, even if subconsciously, that something greater has been tugging at you, drawing your attention, pulling your focus, and stirring your emotions in ways that logic alone cannot explain. You sense a pull toward a particular person, a connection that refuses to fade. No matter how much time passes or how often you try to move on, you may have tried distraction, distance, suppression, even denial, yet the spiritual pull remains like a soft but persistent whisper inside your heart. Chosen one, listen carefully. You are not weak, you are not delusional, and you are not stuck. What you are experiencing is spiritual activity. When God chooses someone to carry a divine assignment, He also chooses specific people to become part of that assignment. Sometimes that comes in the form of mentorship or partnership, sometimes in the form of healing, and sometimes in the form of destiny-anchoring relationships that shape the course of your life. What you feel is not emotional instability. It is your spirit responding to divine movement. You are not imagining the weight of this connection. You are not exaggerating the depth of it. You are not overthinking the meaning of it. Your spirit has sensed something your eyes have not fully seen. And because you are a chosen one, your spiritual sensitivity is often higher than others. Even when you don't fully realize it, God does not whisper lightly to those. He calls, He pulls, He stirs, He disrupts, He awakens. And so today, this message speaks directly to you, the one who has been feeling the invisible hand of heaven guiding your heart towards someone for reasons you cannot articulate. This is your sign, your moment of clarity, your confirmation that God is speaking. That inner stirring is not emotional chaos. It is divine alignment in motion. If you are honest with yourself, you've been asking the same questions quietly, late at night or deep in thought. Why won't this feeling go away? Why does my spirit hold on to this person when everything else tells me to let go? Why is there a connection I cannot sever, no matter how many times I try? You've tried to convince yourself that you're imagining it. You've tried to rationalize it, to bury it under logic and excuses. You've tried to silence it by focusing on other things or other people. But the truth remains. The feeling doesn't disappear. It softens sometimes. It fades for a moment, but it never fully releases you. It is like a spiritual echo that keeps returning until you pay attention. And that alone raises questions that go deeper than emotion. Why does your heart remember what your mind tries to forget? Why does your spirit stay connected when circumstances say it's impossible? Why does something inside you refuse to release this person even when you think you should, chosen one? It is because this is not a regular emotional attachment. It is not a fleeting feeling or a temporary infatuation. What you are experiencing is a destiny-driven connection. These connections do not fade because they are not rooted in earthly emotion. They are rooted in spiritual assignment. Destiny-driven connections operate at a level the mind struggles to process. They are not governed by time, distance, silence, or circumstance. They persist because they are tied to purpose. They remain because heaven has woven something into the connection that cannot be severed by willpower alone. Your heart is not confused. Your heart is aligning. Your spirit is not weak. Your spirit is recognizing. Your soul is not wandering. Your soul is remembering. When God intertwines two destinies, the pull becomes sacred, undeniable, and persistent. And until the purpose behind the connection is fulfilled, the weight of it lingers like a divine question pressing against your heart. That is what you have been feeling, and that is why the feeling refuses to leave. Every connection God creates is intentional. Heaven does not waste divine alignment on temporary emotions or meaningless encounters. God does not design soul ties at random. Every bond that carries weight, carries purpose. Every connection that refuses to break is connected to destiny. Every persistent pull is tied to heaven's blueprint. You see, chosen one, God is a God of order, design, and purpose. When He allows someone to touch your soul, it is because they carry something connected to your future, whether it be healing, awakening, partnership, restoration, or transformation. There are people assigned to your next dimension, and your spirit senses them long before your circumstances reveal it. This is why the connection feels different. This is why the thought of this person hits deeper. This is why the spiritual pull feels sacred, heavy, and purposeful. Your spirit is responding to heaven's blueprint. Ecclesiastes 3:11 tells us, He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. This means two things. One, there is a divine timing attached to everything God ordains. Some connections make sense only when the appointed time arrives. Until then, they feel like unfinished chapters. Your soul refuses to close. 2. God places eternal recognition inside your heart. Your spirit can sense what is connected to you before your mind understands it. That is why this feeling is not fading. It is eternal recognition stirring within you. Heaven's blueprint is bigger than your confusion, bigger than your questions, and bigger than your current circumstances. You are being pulled because something divine has been written over your life, something that includes this person in a way you may not yet fully understand. But understand this, God does not stir without purpose. He does not disrupt your soul unless something is being aligned. He does not allow your spirit to cling unless there is a reason tied to destiny. Chosen one, stay with this message. What you are about to receive will bring clarity you've been praying for. The confusion you've been wrestling with will begin to dissolve. The emotional fog will lift. Your spirit will understand what your mind has been fighting. You are about to hear 5 signs that will explain why this person remains on your spirit percent, why the connection holds such weight, why your heart refuses to release what heaven has marked, and what God is truly trying to reveal to you. These signs will shift your perspective. They will bring understanding where you once had doubt. They will confirm what your soul has been trying to whisper. By the time you finish this message, you will no longer feel lost in your emotions. You will stand rooted in revelation. So prepare your heart, open your spirit, lean in. This is your moment of clarity. If you are ready to receive spiritually, if your heart is open and your spirit is listening, type Amen in the comments as a declaration that you are ready for divine truth. Your understanding begins now. Sign 1. Repeated encounters are not random. When God wants your attention, He does not shout, He repeats. And when heaven is trying to reveal the importance of a person in your destiny, the encounters, memories, signs, and reminders surrounding them begin to follow a sacred rhythm. This is the first sign. Repeated encounters are never random. They are patterns, holy patterns woven by the hands of God to draw your spirit toward understanding. And as you begin noticing these sacred patterns, you realize that glimpses, dreams, memories, and unexpected reminders are not coincidences at all, but divine signals meant to awaken your awareness. You know this well, chosen one. A person crosses your mind out of nowhere. A memory resurfaces at the exact moment you thought you had moved on. Their name appears in places that have nothing to do with them. A song, a message, a vision, or even a dream brings them back into your spirit with surprising clarity, and no matter how many times you try to brush it aside, the reminder returns again, soft, subtle, but persistent. This is not emotional desperation. This is not an overactive imagination. This is not your mind wandering aimlessly. This is divine orchestration. When God is aligning 2 destinies, He begins by stirring awareness. He opens portals of memory. He highlights specific faces. He reignites dormant emotions, not to confuse you, but to signal that something about this person has not yet been completed in the realm of purpose. Heaven speaks first through patterns. God's voice, though spiritual, often manifests in repetitions that your soul can recognize even before your logic agrees. And so the same thought returns, the same memory returns, the same nudge returns. This is God's gentle insistence. Pay attention. This connection still carries meaning. These patterns are sacred. They are heaven's fingerprints on your emotional timeline, and they appear again and again because your spirit is being guided to notice what your eyes have overlooked. And just like Moses experiencing his burning bush moment, these repeated signs are subtle divine invitations urging you to turn aside and pay attention. When Moses encountered the burning bush, Scripture says something powerful. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to look, then God spoke. God could have shouted from the heavens, but he didn't. He offered a sign and waited to see whether Moses would notice. Likewise, God gives you burning bush moments concerning this person, not literal fire, but spiritual fire moments that catch your attention. Break the rhythm of your day and make your spirit pause. A dream that feels too vivid to ignore, a memory that returns with unusual weight, a sudden sense of longing that feels bigger than loneliness, deeper than nostalgia. These are not accidents, these are signals. God is saying, turn aside and look. Don't rush past this moment. Your destiny is trying to speak to you. Repetition is heaven's way of alignment. God knows that when something repeats often enough, your spirit will eventually acknowledge that it is more than coincidence. It is communication. He speaks through spiritual echoes. He speaks through timing that feels too precise to dismiss. He speaks through patterns that touch the heart instead of the mind. Your burning bush moments may not be dramatic, but they are divine. And every time they appear, heaven is giving you an opportunity to recognize the hand of God in the details of your journey. And when you consider the principle revealed through Ruth and Boaz, you begin to understand how ordinary moments often carry eternal purpose through divine placement, not chance. The story of Ruth and Boaz is one of the most beautiful illustrations of destiny-driven encounters. Ruth did not accidentally walk into Boaz's field. She was led. She was positioned by heaven. And Boaz did not randomly notice her. His spirit was divinely stirred. Neither of them knew, in the beginning, that their meeting was part of God's larger plan. To them, everything seemed ordinary, a field, a harvest, a simple act of kindness. But behind the scenes, heaven was guiding every step, aligning two destinies that were designed to intersect. This is how divine connections often work. You may see only the ordinary moment, a message, a reunion, a memory, a chance encounter, a name that appears again, a dream that repeats for no logical reason. But when God is involved, ordinary moments carry extraordinary purpose. Heaven hides meaning inside simplicity. What feels small in the natural becomes monumental in the spiritual. There is no randomness in destiny. There is only placement. There is only timing. There is only divine orchestration. If the same person keeps appearing in your life, in your thoughts, your dreams, your reminders, your emotional landscape, then something is being aligned, something is being positioned, something is being prepared. Just like Ruth and Boaz, you may not understand the meaning right away, but purpose is often revealed one encounter at a time. And to understand these patterns fully, you must learn to separate discernment from emotion, because true divine signals produce peace, not chaos. This is where wisdom becomes essential. Not every strong connection is from God. Not every emotional pull is spiritual. Not every memory is divine. Some feelings come from wounds. Some connections come from trauma. Some intensity comes from desire, not destiny. So how do you know the difference? Divine signals bring clarity. Emotional impulses bring confusion. Divine alignment brings peace, even in uncertainty. Emotional longing brings chaos, even in certainty. God does not lead you into emotional storms. He leads you into grounded discernment. So examine the signs through this filter. Do the encounters feel orchestrated or forced? Do the reminders come with peace or anxiety? Does the thought of this person feel purposeful or draining? Do the repetitions feel like God drawing you closer, or your emotions pulling you back? When God is speaking, there is always a thread of peace woven into the message. Even if the situation is complicated, even if the timing is unclear, even if the path is uncertain, you will sense an inner stillness, a grounded assurance that there is a divine reason behind the repetition. This is the key. God never leads you through confusion. He leads you through resonance. Your spirit will not feel frantic, it will feel awakened. Your heart will not feel heavy, it will feel stirred. Your mind will not feel chaotic, it will feel attentive. True divine signals carry weight, but never instability. They carry depth, but never torment. They carry intensity, but never emotional destruction. Discernment allows you to see beyond feelings, into spiritual truth. It allows you to recognize when God is repeating a sign because it is essential to your destiny, and when your emotions are repeating a memory because it is familiar. Discernment separates noise from instruction. Emotion reacts, spirit recognizes, and when the same person continues to appear within the realms of your dreams, thoughts, memories, and spiritual encounters, accompanied by peace instead of confusion, you can be confident that God is revealing something that deserves your attention. Chosen one, this is your first sign. Repeated encounters are not random. They are spiritual markers guiding your awareness. They are burning bush moments, drawing you closer. They are destiny patterns echoing heaven's intention. They are signals that must be discerned, not dismissed. If this speaks to your spirit, simply type, I receive. Sign 1, sign 2. Their presence awakens your spirit. One of the clearest signs that a person holds spiritual significance in your life is this. Their presence does not merely stir your emotions, it awakens your spirit. When someone is aligned with your destiny, something inside you begins to rise. Dormant strength wakes up, hidden clarity surfaces, your spiritual senses sharpen, and suddenly, the parts of you that were once quiet or distracted begin to burn again with purpose. There are people who enter your life and drain you. There are people who entertain you but do not grow you. There are people who comfort your wounds but do not strengthen your calling. But then, once in a lifetime, there is someone whose presence activates you spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and purposefully. Their existence stirs something divine inside you. Their presence calls your spirit to attention. This is sign 2. And as this spiritual activation begins, you recognize that this person sharpens you rather than distracts you. And suddenly, your dreams, purpose, clarity, and spiritual hunger reawaken. This kind of awakening is not dramatic, it is sacred. You feel it in the way your mind becomes clearer when they speak. You notice it in how your spirit becomes more alert when they appear. You observe it in how your heart becomes more aligned with God when they cross your path. This person does not create confusion, they create awakening. You begin dreaming again. You begin believing again. You begin pursuing purpose again. You begin praying with a new fire in their presence. You feel yourself rising into a version of you that you had forgotten. Your spirit becomes sharper, your focus becomes stronger, and your heart becomes more sensitive to God's voice. They don't push you into distraction, they pull you into destiny. Pay attention to that, because when someone has been spiritually assigned to your journey, their presence activates what God placed inside you long before you met them. They don't add something foreign, they awaken something familiar. They don't deposit something temporary, they stir something eternal. Your dreams that once lay buried come alive. Your spiritual hunger that felt dormant reignites. Your clarity that faded under life's pressure returns with new strength. This is not emotional dependency, this is spiritual activation. And when you study the Jonathan and David principle, you see that such awakening happens when souls are knit together by divine alignment, not by familiarity or convenience. Jonathan and David were not childhood friends. They did not grow up together. They did not share long histories or family legacy. Their connection happened instantly because it was divine, not accidental. Scripture says, "The soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David." That word knit means fused, intertwined, spiritually aligned. But this alignment didn't just create friendship, it created mutual strengthening. Jonathan strengthened David in God. David inspired Jonathan to rise in courage. The connection protected them both. The connection accelerated them both. This is the mark of a God-ordained connection. Both spirits rise, both destinies accelerate, both hearts become stronger in God. When the person God is highlighting comes into your life, you feel supported without being dependent. You feel seen without being exposed. You feel understood without needing to explain. Their spirit recognizes yours in a way that goes beyond natural familiarity. You feel safe but also stretched. You feel encouraged but also challenged. You feel comforted but also strengthened. This is Jonathan and David alignment. It is rare, sacred, powerful, and not formed by human preference. It is formed by divine assignment. And as this alignment deepens, you realize that their presence does not merely comfort you, it convicts you, calling you higher, and mirroring the person you are destined to become. Understand this clearly. A God-sent connection does not always make you feel good. It makes you feel called. Yes, they bring peace, but not complacency. Yes, they bring comfort, but not stagnation. Yes, they bring security, but not passivity. When this person enters your life, something in you wants to rise. They make you want to be better, not to earn their approval, but because their presence reveals the greatness God placed inside you. Their spiritual energy exposes your excuses, confronts your limitations, and awakens your potential. They ignite holy conviction inside you, the kind of conviction that says, I can do more. I was made for more. I must rise higher. I cannot stay where I am. They mirror the strongest, most obedient, most purpose-driven version of you. When you look at them, you don't see who you've been, you see who God is shaping you into. Their presence pulls you out of small thinking. Their presence pulls you out of spiritual laziness. Their presence pulls you out of emotional stagnation. Why? Because destiny connections do not pamper your old self. They pull your future self into the present. This is why you feel different around them. This is why your spirit becomes more sensitive. This is why you feel convicted to grow, mature, and align. Their presence becomes a mirror, not of your flaws, but of your calling. And as this holy stirring continues, you begin recognizing that the energy surrounding them pushes you toward prayer, identity, and purpose. And what's remarkable is that the impact remains even when they are absent. This is one of the most profound indicators of a destiny-aligned connection. The activation doesn't stop when they leave the room. With ordinary people, inspiration fades quickly. With temporary connections, the feeling dissolves. With emotional attachments, the impact drains you. But when God sends someone into your life, the activation they bring stays with you long after the conversation ends, long after the moment passes, long after you walk away. You think deeper, you pray stronger, you seek God more intentionally, you rediscover your identity with boldness. This person awakens the warrior in you. They reawaken the intercessor in you. They reawaken the dreamer in you. They reawaken the chosen one in you. And here is the mystery. You feel spiritually elevated even when they're not physically present. Why? Because their presence didn't awaken your emotions. It awakened your spirit. Your spirit remains in a higher frequency. Your thoughts remain aligned. Your purpose remains illuminated. You find yourself praying again, not because they told you to, but because something inside you has been stirred. You find yourself thinking differently, not because you are forcing it, but because your spirit has shifted. You find yourself pursuing purpose with new passion, not to impress them, but because their presence reminded you of who you truly are. Their influence echoes, their energy lingers, their impact continues. A kingdom-aligned connection accelerates your destiny even in silence. They propel you not by pushing you, but by awakening you. They activate something God placed inside you that no one else could reach. Chosen one. This is sign 2. Their presence awakens your spirit. Their energy activates your purpose. Their alignment mirrors your future self. Their influence remains even in absence. If your spirit recognizes this type, I receive sign 2. Sign 3. The bond survives time, silence, and distance. One of the most powerful confirmations that a connection is divinely orchestrated is its ability to endure. Not just endure joy, communication, or closeness, but endure separation, quiet seasons, and the long stretches where nothing seems to be happening. When a bond is truly from God, it does not break under silence. It does not dissolve under distance. It does not decay under time. Instead, it deepens, matures, and grows in dimensions unseen. This is because divine connections are not held together by circumstance. They are held together by assignment, and what heaven ordains cannot be undone by earthly gaps or earthly weights. Time may pass, but the Spirit remembers. Silence may stretch, but the purpose continues. Distance may widen, but the alignment remains intact. You may not talk every day. You may not see each other often. You may even go through seasons where it looks like the connection is gone, and yet the bond stays alive. This is sign 3, and when you look closely at these connections that endure, you discover that while most relationships fade under pressure, divine bonds actually mature and strengthen through absence. Human relationships tend to break under strain. When communication stops, the connection weakens. When time passes, the heart detaches. When distance grows, interest fades. This is because many relationships are emotional, seasonal, or circumstantial. They are rooted in proximity, familiarity, or convenience, not purpose. But when God has woven a bond between two souls, the rules change. The bond does not weaken under absence, it solidifies. The connection does not dissolve under silence, it deepens. The meaning does not fade with time, it matures. This is because the glue is not emotion, it is assignment. The anchor is not desire, it is destiny. The connection is not maintained by effort, it is sustained by God. You may go months without speaking, yet the moment your spirit thinks of them, it still feels as alive as ever. You may go through long seasons where both paths lead in different directions, yet something inside you knows the story is not complete. A divine connection does not require constant interaction to remain real. It lives, it breathes, it waits, it grows, not because you are holding on to it, but because heaven refuses to let it die. And as you learn to see the silence correctly, you begin to understand that silence in divine connections is not rejection at all. It is refining, purifying intention, deepening faith, and preparing both hearts for what is ahead. Silence hurts when you don't understand it. Silence wounds when you assume it means abandonment. Silence creates anxiety when you believe everything depends on you. But silence becomes holy when you recognize its purpose. God uses silence to expose motives. God uses silence to strengthen trust. God uses silence to purify emotional attachment. God uses silence to prepare both hearts individually before He aligns them collectively. If communication was constant, you would rely on the person more than God. If the bond was always active, you would mistake emotion for calling. If the connection was always easy, you would forget its spiritual purpose. So God allows silence not to break you, but to refine you. During the quiet seasons, God asks questions such as, do you want them for comfort or for calling? Is this attachment emotional or spiritual? Do you desire their presence more than my voice? Can you trust me even when the connection feels paused? Silence tests the heart. Silence matures the spirit. Silence cleanses intention. And ironically, silence strengthens a divine connection more than constant communication ever could. Because when a bond survives silence, it proves it is rooted in purpose, not preference. And when you reflect on the Joseph principle, you realize that distance often carries purpose. What appears lost for a season is later revealed as divine positioning. Joseph's story is a masterpiece of distance, silence, and divine orchestration. He was separated from his family, removed from his familiar environment, and placed in a location that seemed totally disconnected from his calling. Yet it was exactly that distance that positioned him for destiny. Sometimes God separates to elevate. Sometimes God distances to develop. Sometimes God isolates to prepare. Joseph's separation was not punishment, it was alignment. His distance was not abandonment, it was positioning for the fulfillment of prophecy. And yet, during all those silent years, Joseph never lost the spiritual bond he had with the dreams God gave him. The purpose remained alive even while the circumstances seemed dead. This is the same principle operating in divine connections today. You may be separated physically, but spiritually aligned. You may feel distant emotionally, but spiritually connected. You may sense the silence deeply, but destiny is still moving. What feels like a pause is actually preparation. What feels like distance is actually divine setup. What feels like loss is actually strategic positioning. God often removes two people temporarily in order to prepare them individually for what they cannot yet carry together. When the connection resurfaces at the appointed time, you will realize that nothing was lost. Everything was being aligned. And when you look deeper, you see that the bond remains alive not because of emotional longing, but because it is spirit-born, proving that absence actually strengthens what heaven established. This is the clearest indicator of a God-ordained bond. The connection remains alive even when desire fades. The memory remains warm even when logic cools. The significance remains heavy even when contact stops. The energy remains present even when the person is far. Why? Because the connection was never emotional to begin with. It was spiritual. Emotional longing fades with time. Spiritual recognition does not. Emotional ties weaken when communication stops. Spiritual ties continue to pulse beneath the surface. Emotional attachment depends on presence. Spiritual assignment survives absence. Your spirit remembers even when your mind forgets. Your heart recognizes even when your logic denies. Your purpose responds even when your feelings retreat. This is why the bond survives. It is spirit-born, it is heaven-anchored, it is destiny-wired. And because its origin is divine, absence does not destroy it, it strengthens it. Absence clarifies what emotion tried to confuse. Absence reduces noise, so purpose can be heard. Absence forces growth, so alignment can be possible. And most of all, absence proves whether the bond was emotional, seasonal, or divine. If it fades, it was emotional. If it shifts, it was seasonal. If it remains, it was divine. And if it survives time, silence, and distance, then it is tethered to destiny, chosen one. This is sign 3. A divine bond survives what normal relationships cannot. It survives silence because God is refining. It survives distance because God is positioning. It survives time because God is preserving. It survives absence because the Spirit remembers. If this resonates with you, if you feel this truth in your spirit type, I receive sign 3, sign 4, they push you towards your calling. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when God sends a connection not to make life easier, not to make emotions softer, but to awaken something inside you that has been dormant for too long. And so we begin with this truth. Some people walk into your life to sharpen you, not to soften you. Connections that sharpen, not soften. Some people soothe emotions but starve spiritual purpose. Divine connections awaken spiritual authority. When God ordains a connection, it does not appeal to your comfort, it appeals to your calling. These are not the individuals who simply make you feel good. They make you feel awake. They disrupt your stagnation, interrupt your fear, and interrupt cycles that you try to convince yourself were normal. You may have noticed that when they speak, something in your spirit shifts. Their presence stirs a boldness you didn't know you had. A conviction rises. Your thinking becomes sharper. Your decisions become more aligned. Your prayer becomes deeper. It is as if God strategically sent someone into your life who activates the parts of you were afraid to touch. And here is the mystery. They may not even be aware that God is using them, but you know, your spirit knows, because where others have soothed your feelings, this connection strengthens your identity. Where others have calmed your fears, this one awakens your assignment. Where others have encouraged your dreams, this one summons your destiny. This is why divine connections never leave you the way they found you. They sharpen what God planted in you so that you rise into the fullness of who you are meant to be. Esther and Mordecai principle. Just like Mordecai summoned Esther's courage and refused to let her shrink or settle, divine connections call you into purpose. When God sends someone to push you toward your calling, their voice becomes a spiritual echo, firm but loving, challenging yet empowering. This is the Mordecai principle at work. When Esther was tempted to shrink back from her assignment, it was Mordecai who delivered the unforgettable reminder. You were born for such a time as this. Every chosen one eventually meets someone who carries the same anointing. someone who refuses to let you remain small, someone who refuses to watch you settle for less, someone who sees the queen, the warrior, the leader, the prophet, the builder inside you, even when you cannot. This person does not flatter you, they summon you. Their presence becomes a spiritual mirror, reflecting the version of you that heaven recognizes, not the version your past has tried to sculpt. They don't let you disappear into fear. They don't let you shrink into insecurity. They won't let you bow to intimidation. Instead, they stand in spiritual alignment and declare with their life, their words, their posture. Rise. Step into your calling. Your voice matters. Your position is not accidental. This is why God places Mordecai-like figures in the path of every Esther, because destiny requires courage, and courage is often awakened through relationship, holy discomfort. They challenge passivity and complacency because they reveal the spiritual version of you. Real divine connections don't leave you comfortable. Their presence introduces what I call holy discomfort, a sacred agitation that pushes you out of spiritual laziness and emotional retreat. This discomfort doesn't feel like criticism. It feels like conviction. It feels like someone reaching into your potential and pulling the curtain open. You suddenly become aware that you were living beneath your calling. You realize you've been operating on spiritual autopilot. You begin to see the gap between your current life and your divine assignment. And instead of being offended, your spirit becomes awakened. Some part of you says, I can be better, I can walk deeper, I can rise higher, I can live aligned. This is holy discomfort, a divine agitation that shifts your posture from passive to purposeful, from hesitant to unstoppable, from fearful to spiritually fortified. They challenge the version of you that settles. They provoke the version of you that hides. They call forth the version of you heaven wrote into your destiny. They activate the warrior in you not by pressure, but by presence, because sometimes God doesn't change you with storms, trials, or battles. He changes you with people, eternal influence. Their impact lingers, shaping decisions long after contact ends. Because they don't rescue you, they remind you who you are. The greatest indicator of a divine connection is not what you feel when they are present, but what remains when they are gone. There are people whose words echo in you days, weeks, or even years later. You hear their voice in moments of fear. You remember their encouragement in moments of pressure. You replay their wisdom in moments of confusion. It is not emotional dependency. It is spiritual imprinting. Their influence is eternal because it comes from eternity. Divine connections remind you of truths you tried to forget. You are chosen, you are called, you are anointed, you are capable. You are not who the enemy tried to tell you that you are. Even without their presence, the alignment they brought continues working in you. You make braver decisions. You step into higher responsibilities. You pray differently. You move differently. You think with clarity and purpose. Why? Because they didn't rescue you. They didn't carry you. They didn't do the work for you. They reminded you who you were created to be. And once your spirit remembers, it cannot return to smallness. Their absence doesn't weaken you. It reveals how much strength they awaken within you. This is why divine connections often come in seasons, sometimes brief, sometimes intermittent, sometimes intense, sometimes quiet, but always impactful. Their purpose is not to stay forever. Their purpose is to transform you forever. Their influence becomes a spiritual landmark in your journey, a moment you can point back to and say, that is where something in me awakened. That is where my calling became clear. That is where I stepped into alignment. That is where God used someone to pull destiny out of me. And that is why sign 4 matters. Because when someone pushes you toward your calling, gently, boldly, consistently, spiritually, that connection is not ordinary. It is heaven sent. It is assignment driven. It is purpose forged. It is destiny activated. These are the people God plants in your path not to comfort you into complacency, but to elevate you into the life He has prepared for you. And whenever such a person crosses your path, your spirit recognizes them before your mind does, because destiny always speaks the same language. Sign 5, your missions are intertwined. There comes a moment in every God-ordained connection when you realize this is bigger than feelings, bigger than timing. bigger than preference. Something in your spirit discerns that this bond is rooted not in emotion but in assignment, and that the paths God has given you are not parallel by accident, they are interwoven by design. This is where we recognize that when heaven writes a connection, it writes with purpose, not sentiment. Purpose-driven partnership. You know it's divine because the connection is rooted in assignment, not emotion, revealing two callings converging into divine synergy. Human connections often begin with emotional spark, convenience, familiarity, or comfort, but a divine one carries something deeper. Mission. When your spirit meets someone whose presence aligns with your destiny, the connection immediately feels purposeful. It isn't merely about companionship. It is about completion of assignment. This connection pulls you forward instead of holding you back. It amplifies your God-given vision instead of distracting you from it. It awakens not your emotional hunger, but your spiritual readiness. You begin to notice things like your gifts emerge more boldly, your focus becomes clearer, your spiritual discipline strengthens, your dreams become more daring, your purpose becomes heavier but lighter at the same time. Why? Because this person does not stir your flesh, they stir your calling. You sense that your missions are connected, that what God placed in you resonates with what God placed in them. The synergy happens naturally, effortlessly, almost supernaturally. You don't have to force alignment. Alignment is built into the connection. This is how God forms kingdom partnerships. He merges two callings that were designed to coexist, complement, and collide into destiny. Nehemiah principle. This becomes even clearer through the Nehemiah principle, where vision meets execution and calling meets complementary calling. Nehemiah carried the burden of a broken wall, but even with vision, conviction, and divine assignment, he could not rebuild alone. God sent people who carried the skills he lacked, the strategies he needed, and the strength to lift what he could not lift alone. This is the essence of a God-ordained connection. Your calling carries vision. Theirs carries structure. Your burden carries clarity. Theirs carries solutions. Your destiny carries direction. Theirs carries strategy. Where one sees the blueprint, the other sees the steps. Where one feels the weight, the other creates the plan. Where one hears the instruction, the other builds the execution. It becomes impossible to ignore. There is divine efficiency when the two of you align. You don't compete with each other. You complete the assignment together. This is why the bond feels sacred, because in their presence, you see the version of your calling that is fully operational. You recognize that God often hides parts of your mission inside another person, not because you're incomplete alone, but because the impact you were designed for is impossible without partnership. Nehemiah didn't need emotional encouragement. He needed alignment. He needed strategic support. He needed someone who understood the urgency of his calling. And when God sends a connection that mirrors this dynamic, your spirit knows this person is part of my assignment. Not as a crutch, not as a rescuer, but as a co-builder of the destiny God has shaped. The Nehemiah principle teaches this powerful truth. When God joins missions, the wall gets rebuilt faster, stronger, and with heaven's signature on it. Spirit-level compatibility. This level of partnership only happens because the gifts between you amplify rather than compete, forming a unity that multiplies influence and spiritual authority. Surface compatibility is easy. Anyone can share opinions, interests, or preferences, but spirit-level compatibility is rare, divinely rare. This is when two people's gifts flow together without friction, ego, or resistance. You notice that their strengths don't overshadow yours, they amplify them. Your gifts don't intimidate them, they inspire them. Your fire doesn't scare them, it awakens theirs. This compatibility reaches beyond personality and touches spiritual resonance. It's not about getting along, it's about aligning assignments. You can pray together without awkwardness, dream together without fear, build together without confusion, speak life into each other without hesitation, sharpen each other without insecurity. This kind of alignment multiplies impact. You begin to produce more spiritually, emotionally, and creatively, not because they push you, but because their presence activates what God placed inside you. It's like your spirits recognize each other's blueprint, like your destinies were coded to connect. like your purposes breathe easier together. Where most relationships drain energy, this one expands it. Where most partnerships require constant balance, this one finds balance naturally. Where most people slow you down, this one accelerates you. This is spirit-level compatibility. The rare dynamic where two people together create a kingdom force that neither could generate alone. Kingdom consequence. You realize the relationship is less about romance and more about legacy, and the enemy fought the connection because of its future impact. Here is the truth heaven reveals in divine timing. When God intertwines two missions, the connection itself carries a kingdom consequence. This means it affects more than just your life. It affects generations, regions, spiritual atmospheres, destinies, and assignments that reach far beyond the present moment. That's why the bond felt intense. That's why the warfare was fierce. That's why the enemy tried to cause confusion, distance, fear, or misunderstanding. Not because the connection was weak, but because its future impact is strong. This type of bond is not designed to create romance. It is engineered to create legacy. Legacy in influence, legacy in faith, legacy in obedience, legacy in ministry, legacy in impact. The enemy does not attack ordinary connections. He attacks consequential ones. He attacks connections that are dangerous to darkness. This is why your spirits recognize each other, your gifts aligned without effort, your conversations activated purpose, your missions naturally intersected. Your presence in each other's lives produced acceleration. God didn't bind your hearts for emotional comfort. He bound your assignments for kingdom expansion. This is the connection that doesn't end with feelings. It births movements, ministries, visions, and destiny-level transformation. It is the kind of bond that shapes history, not by emotional intensity, but by spiritual consequence. And when your missions are intertwined, your spirit knows this person is not a chapter, they are a calling. Is river. This bond is not coincidence, it is covenant. This connection is not emotional, it is eternal. This is the fifth sign. The sign that tells you heaven has woven someone into your destiny, so the two of you become more aligned, more powerful, and more unstoppable together than you could ever be apart. There comes a moment in every spiritual journey when the soul finally exhales and admits what the heart has been whispering, what the signs have been revealing, and what the spirit has been sensing long before the mind could articulate it. This connection is not ordinary. This pull is not emotional confusion. This weight is not fantasy. There is something divine here, intentional, purposeful, and written by God Himself. This is the awakening. The moment when your spirit aligns with truth and your life is invited into a higher dimension of discernment, understanding, and destiny. For so long, you questioned yourself. You wondered if it was all in your mind, if you were holding on to something you should release, if you were imagining the depth, the pull, the purpose, the alignment. But awakening is the moment when the fog lifts and your soul recognizes this isn't obsession, this is assignment. This isn't emotional attachment, this is destiny's echo. This isn't longing, this is spiritual recognition. This is where the journey shifts, where the connection becomes less about desire and more about understanding God's divine design. You come to terms with the truth that this connection is divine, weighty, and purposeful, not fantasy, not obsession, but destiny. The human mind often struggles to understand what the spirit already knows. Your spirit recognized this person before you consciously understood why. That strange familiarity, that inner stir, that unexplainable resonance. These were not illusions. They were spiritual signals. You did not imagine the intensity. You did not fabricate the alignment. You did not dream up the sense of purpose. Your soul was responding to something heaven authored. There are connections born in the flesh. These fade quickly. There are connections born in emotion. These fluctuate constantly. But then there are connections born in the spirit, and these carry weight, heavenly weight. Their presence is different. Their absence is different. Their timing is different. Their impact is different. You have wrestled with this connection because it refused to behave like an ordinary attachment. When you tried to let go, something deeper held on. When you tried to shut it down, your spirit wouldn't release it. When you tried to silence it, something divine kept speaking through it, not to torment you, but to awaken you to purpose, awaken you to alignment, awaken you to destiny's rhythm at work behind the scenes. You're not waking up to a fantasy. You're waking up to a calling, one that involves another person whose presence in your life is not accidental, not random, and not irrelevant. This acknowledgement does not create weight. It reveals the weight that has always been there. And because you now recognize the truth of this connection, heaven calls you to spiritual maturity, to guard your heart without shutting it, and to prepare spiritually, emotionally, and purposefully for what God is shaping. Once revelation comes, responsibility follows. God never reveals truth to the immature. He reveals truth to the ready. And now that your spirit has awakened, your posture must change. Spiritual maturity doesn't mean you suppress your emotions. It means you steward them. It means you protect your heart not by shutting it off, but by aligning it with God's timing. Many people respond to divine connections with panic, fear, emotional hyperactivity, or attempts to force the outcome. But divine things do not require force, only alignment. God does not rush you. He refines you. He does not demand perfection. He asks for readiness. Spiritual maturity says, I will guard my heart, but not harden it. I will be open, but not reckless. I will be hopeful, but not desperate. I will prepare, not obsess. I will grow, not grasp. You cannot enter a divine connection carrying old wounds, old patterns, old fears, or old versions of yourself. You cannot step into destiny unprepared for the weight of purpose. You cannot handle the blessing if you are still healing from the brokenness. That is why God often delays connection until transformation occurs. This is not punishment. This is preparation. This is maturity. This is mercy. Spiritual maturity is the soil in which destiny-rooted relationships flourish. God does not unite two unprepared hearts. He refines them separately, so their union is strong, stable, and spiritually aligned. So the question is no longer, why hasn't it happened yet? But rather, what is God growing in me until it does? This leads to a powerful shift in your approach to prayer, moving you from asking God to rush the connection toward asking Him to finish His work in you first. Many people pray from impatience. God, bring them back. God, open the doors now. God, remove the silence. God, accelerate the timeline. But divine connections are not microwavable. They are marinated in purpose, timing, character, and calling. They are built slowly, precisely, intentionally. This is why your prayer must shift. Instead of praying for God to rush the connection, you begin praying, Lord, prepare me. Complete the work you've started in my heart. Align me with the character required for this destiny. Heal what I haven't acknowledged. Refine what needs transformation. Strengthen me for the assignment tied to this person. This is spiritual maturity. This is spiritual responsibility. This is spiritual growth. Suddenly, it becomes less about them and more about you. Not in a selfish way, but in a surrendered way. Because destiny connections require healed versions of the people involved, not wounded ones. You realize that God isn't delaying you, He's developing you. He's not withholding blessing, He's building capacity. He's not denying you connection, He's shaping you for covenant. Your prayers begin to align with heaven when you stop asking for acceleration and start asking for transformation. Because here is the truth. When the readiness meets the right timing, what feels delayed becomes destiny fulfilled. And the final awakening is this: you must live like someone chosen with alignment, growth, even during separation, and unshakable trust in divine timing. The awakening isn't complete until your life reflects the revelation. Knowing you are chosen is one thing. Living like someone chosen is another. Living chosen means walking in alignment, even when you're walking alone. It means honoring your calling even when the connection is in silence. It means obeying God even when you don't understand the timeline. It means growing during separation, not shrinking in despair. You begin to strengthen your prayer life, elevate your discipline, refine your character, pursue your purpose, heal your emotional patterns, walk boldly in identity, steward your assignment with excellence. This is preparation. This is spiritual readiness. This is destiny work. Living chosen means you trust divine timing more than your own longing. You trust God's orchestration more than your desire for clarity. You trust that the God who authored the connection will also perfect it. So you stop trying to force outcomes. You stop trying to manipulate timing. You stop trying to interpret silence. You stop trying to control what God is still shaping. Instead, you stand in faith. You walk with purpose. You grow in character. You stay aligned with heaven. Because chosen people walk differently. They speak differently. They think differently. They wait differently. They prepare differently. They trust differently. You understand that destiny is not fragile. That divine connections are not easily broken. That what God ordains cannot be undone by silence, distance, or delay. And so, this awakening becomes your declaration. This connection is divine, and I will treat it with reverence. I will grow into the version of myself required for this assignment. I will trust God's timing even when I do not see the process. I will walk as someone chosen, purpose-driven, and spiritually aligned, because the awakening is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of alignment. When your spirit awakens to truth, your life must awaken to transformation. This is your moment. This is your clarity. This is your call. And the God who began this divine connection will finish the story in His perfect timing.